Hey, my friends, welcome to the Leadership Center. I'm Dr. Tony Soldano. I have a very special guest today, Moses Khan. Hello, Moses.
Hey.
I have never had a guest on the program before, so you are the very first one. Welcome.
Come on.
Yeah.
Honored.
And of course, Moses and I, we work together and we work very well together. But the reason for our program today, we're calling it the 3's of leadership.
That's right.
And we're going to do this in 3 parts. So every part that we're going to talk about has 3 main components to it. Really kind of flowed out of a discussion that we had out of what I had recorded called the 5 foundations of leadership. And you kind of came back and you had given me these 3's, and I thought they were fantastic. So let me just kind of give the high level. Number 1, we have relational integrity. Number 2, we have direction and movement. And then 3, we have building or development. Today, we want to focus on what you believe is absolutely essential, which is relational integrity. So before we go into the 3 parts, give us a quick working definition. What do you believe is so critical, and how would you define relational integrity as it applies to leadership?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that relational integrity is the healthy consistency between what you believe, who you are, and how you relate to others.
Okay.
Yeah.
Say that again.
What you believe, the healthy consistency of what you believe, who you are, and how you relate to others.
Excellent. So here's the 3 components. Number 1, we want to be right with God. And when we say God, there's, people that are not necessarily faith-based people as we are. So there we're talking about our beliefs, our core values, the things we hold near and dear that are beyond us.
Yeah.
Our principles, we could say that as well. So we want to be right with God and faith. Number 2, we want to be right with ourselves. Mm-hmm. And then we want to be right with people. So before we go forward, what do we mean by the word right?
Right would be healthy, consistent. There is no clutter or fog that is confusing. There's clear definitions of what I believe, who I am, and how I relate to people. That this is not something that I'm just making up as I go along, but there's integrity and consistency through those things.
And of course, we're going to deal with people properly. Mm-hmm. We're going to make right decisions. Yeah. We're going to be honorable, respectful. All of those things that fall under emotional intelligence, I think, are absolutely critical. Things like honor and respect. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Were you going to say something else? Or?
Yeah, no, it would be like good standing. Right is good standing. I'm in good standing with what I believe, who I am, and how I relate with others. And then, of course, all those different, honor, integrity, and truthfulness, love, all that stuff kind of comes out there.
Okay. So let's start with what do I believe? What do I believe in the sense of my values, the core of my being, who I am, maybe the things that I trust and rely on. And leaders, we believe leaders, need to have this North Star, this set of principles and values they live by that is just not only beyond them, but really define them, right? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about why that's important.
Yeah, so this is really, I think, the foundation for any leader, because sometimes I think leaders or people who believe they have leadership qualities are very zealous to want to do stuff, want to build stuff, and want to get to all these things, but they haven't really taken the time to define what are the things that are leading me? What are my priorities? What are my values? And ultimately, if you're a good leader, those are the things that should dictate your schedule, your time, your energy. It shouldn't be the other way around. So what shouldn't dictate your time and energy is your to-do list. What should dictate your to-do list and your schedule and your time and your energy is what you value, what you believe, and what is a priority to you. So these things are important because they're going to set up a foundation for you and help you remain focused to what you believe.
So what's the danger? What's the pitfall if I'm not right with those things?
Yeah, it's twofold. The one is you don't have those things, and so I would say sit down with yourself and come up with what it is you believe, what it is you want to be led by. The other thing is if you have those things that you believe and you are sloppy or inconsistent in how those things actually rule over your own life, well, then I would say you better sit down with yourself a little bit, forget about leading others for a while, and focus on leading yourself.
Wow.
Because if you cannot even lead yourself in the things you believe matter most to you, then how are you going to lead others? And then you step into the realm of now you're not walking in integrity because you're not living out the very things you believe. And how are you going to hold, as a good leader, other people who are under you to accountability if that's not even happening in your own life? And so the danger is you end up becoming a version that you think is right, all the while within inside of you, your internal world could be crumbling.
Right. And so that right and integrity, relational integrity, I mean, this is where people become actors.
Yeah.
You know, this is in our world, you know, what we call hypocrisy.
Yeah.
In other words, I state and maybe even, you know, teach that I believe certain things, but in reality, I'm not true to that.
Yeah.
And so the moment we get offline there, then we impact number two. You called it self-leadership. I mean, everybody is at least the leader of one person, which is themselves.
Yeah.
And so now how does that come into play? How am I integrous with myself? How am I right with myself so that I don't become self-important and self-focused? Like maybe people are hearing this and saying, oh, they just want to draw attention to themselves as leaders. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yes and no. Not drawing attention, however, keeping a thumb and a finger on my emotional bandwidth and the healthiness of my inner being. And so, no, we're not drawing attention to ourselves. However, we're always aware of what is going on in our internal world. And so if a leader can only see outside of them and never see within them, that is an unhealthy leader. And so leaders need to be aware. They need to have a finger on, what is my thought life like? What are the emotions that I'm feeling? Am I actually making decisions from an emotional, intelligent place? Or am I a wreck inside and I'm not even taking the time to examine, to be coherent in my emotions and in my thinking before I go lead others? And so you want to make sure that you are in a healthy place with yourself and with your thoughts. Like, can you sit with your thoughts? Can you sit as a leader with your own emotions? And sometimes I think the way leaders avoid this is that they keep themselves busy. And so productivity becomes a very good excuse to avoid becoming emotionally healthy. While I'm being productive.
Right.
I'm checking things off my to-do list. I've got a busy schedule. And meanwhile, you're emotionally unhealthy.
You know, not only productivity, you know, some leaders, they turn to addictive behavior.
Sure.
You know, they're in the bottle. They're into drugs and really they're being kept together by, you know, by Band-Aids and saunas and hopefully this will solve the issue, but it's very surfacey because on the inside, they are broken in so many places. And so really we're talking about self-awareness. We're talking about being healthy on the inside so that we can be good leaders for others. So we have this idea that we're going to be right with God, right with our faith and our values and the things we believe. We're going to be right with ourselves. And then ultimately, now what we're talking about is interpersonal. So the self is intra. So the inter is we're going to be right with other people. Well, what does that look like?
Yeah. Leadership is hard because not only does it, you know, come with the results of building people up and the success, and you look at it and you look at what you've built, but along the way there's tough things to go through that have to do with people. Leaders have to make hard decisions. Leaders have to work with people. And sometimes we can become so manipulative in our use of people because we just want to get to the bottom line, or we just want to get to the end goal. We just want to see the vision come to pass. And so it doesn't matter how, you know, Bobby feels if I talk to him a certain way, or Susie feels if I'm quick with her and short with her and I just use her to get to what I want to get to. And I would say that if you're building anything without building people first, you're doing it wrong. And so what it means to be right with people, it doesn't mean that you have to be a people pleaser, because that's a pitfall leaders can also fall into, is you become people pleaser. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you're in good standing. There's no unforgiveness. Scientists could tell you the results of unforgiveness in your heart, and even that results into then sickness in the body and performance issues, even in athletes and the rest of it. And so there's a whole science you can dive into of that when your soul is unhealthy and you don't deal with people in a right way.
The ugliness of bitterness and resentments and anger and holding all that stuff in.
And so you don't want to become a leader that people are either afraid of. When you walk into the room, they don't know what they're going to get,
right?
Because you haven't taken the time to sit with them, to have conversations that are beyond just results, data. Well, did you do what you were supposed to do? And so we want to make sure we're in right standing with people.
So you can be right and be wrong at the same time, because you could have knowledge, you can have information.
Yeah.
You can have correct circumstances, but if your attitude is wrong, if you have no respect for people, if you belittle people, this is what we're talking about here.
That's right.
And we treat people like minions or pawns, that they can just be, they're disposable, like a razor. Well, we'll just get another one. And, and there are organizations like, hey, we'll replace you tomorrow. They don't really care. But one of the things as you're speaking is all these things are interconnected. Yeah. It's not like you can just work on one without working on the other. Yeah. And so we have to make sure that we give it the proper time, the proper focus, and that we get it in the right order. This is why we've stated it, first our faith, then ourselves, then our people.
That's it.
Give us a summary. Give us a summary of relational integrity as you see it.
Yeah. I think the beautiful thing about this is that as you continue to operate in this, you are going to see the consistency that is holistic. And you're actually going to become a holistic person, and you're going to realize, wow, what I believe is connected to who I am and how I treat people. And when these three things work in harmony, man, there's joy, there's reward, there is fruit, and what you build is beyond just numbers, but people are involved in that.
Wow. Hey, Moses, thank you for joining us today. This was fantastic. Part 2, Part 3 coming up. Thank you for joining us today on the Leadership Center.